Thank you very much for very inspiring stories. We very enjoyed your talk. And then I have a privilege to manage a couple of questions, maybe discussion for a moment with the panelists. Maybe Dr. Kuno and Ambassador Lomellin can also participate as answering questions. And if somebody could bring one chair, if you could add one chair so that everybody's on panel. We heard many inspiring stories, and I like to particularly focus on challenges you had and how you dealt with those challenges. And I have a couple of questions. First of all, we have many of you did not come straight from the first job. Maybe changed job and you moved to different jobs. And so, in fact, many of us, young people, also stepping one from another. And we often struggle ourselves, what next should be. And it would be great if you could tell us what are the priorities that when you're choosing, one to next step, what kind of mottos or what kind of principles that you continued to looking for different, next step, next path for your career, and that would be very appreciated. If anybody can jump on if you wanted to start. Do you have any? Yeah, Elizabeth. Yeah, thank you.
It's on now. Good. Okay. I'm a great believer in taking on every challenge that comes your way. And I strongly believe that it's important not to stay in your comfort zone. And I think that's one, of course, what that means is you step into your discomfort zone, right? And often we feel, because it feels uncomfortable, we don't want to go there. But when we do that, we stretch. And we stretch our abilities, capabilities, and most importantly, we stretch our confidence. So I think the one thing I would say is don't move forward into a position that is not going to be a challenge for you or that is going to be a backward step. But other than that, I can honestly say that I've only ever regretted the things that I haven't done in my life. I've never regretted the things that I have done. So everything we do in life adds to our experience, adds to our capabilities. So, yeah, be open to new opportunities is what I would say.
Okay. Ambassador Lomellin?
I would probably make, certainly to echo what was just said, 2 points. One of them is, as you move forward and take that next step, make sure you're going into something that you truly believe in, that does not violate your persona, your personal code of ethics, your personal set of values, that will ensure that you will be successful at what you do. And the other thing, too, is be very aware. I know certainly in the 70s and 80s, the big thing was, you can have it all. No, you can't. You will have to make compromises as you move forward, whether it's a decision to marry or not. It's your decision, and it's okay. Whether to have children or not, whether you take that move. I admire the Foreign Service officers of the State Department because they move every 2 years. In that case, can you meet the demands of whatever it is that you're going into? But most importantly, believe in what it is that you're about to enter into.
Yes, basically I echo that both of you, and but probably something addition is that anyway, do your best what you are doing now, and at the same time, don't be suffered. So it is a balance between what you have to do, you do your best, but at the same time that you have to decide, okay, this cannot be continued, to change your life. And to change your life means that sometimes you get out from your comfort zone, but you cannot stay in the same place, regardless it is comfortable for you or you are too much suffered. So think about how you can change your life.
Anybody? No? Yumi-san, please.
Okay, looking back my past from flight attendant to corporate, it was a major career shift. And I did not mind, taking risks and challenges. So if when I had two or three choices in front of me, I always took the hardest choice. And that way, I think I grew so much with those challenges and improved my, problem-solving abilities and how to deal with, people. So that's the model that I have been taking.
So I am somebody who has done the same job from university all the way through. So I'm quite unusual. And I just feel very lucky, actually, that I have had a career I believed in so much that it was worth, I always knew that I wanted to continue after having children, going back to work and carrying on. But as the ambassador said, actually in our system, we move every 4 years. And so as a family, we have moved overseas 3 times to completely different countries. And I think what I would say about that is it can seem very frightening at the time. But you always know that from the minute you arrive in the new place, that just becomes your new reality and you just get on with it. And I think the questions and the practical things you will have to arrange to be able to manage that. And it's for you to network with people, to use all the contacts that you possibly can find to get all the information you need to line all of that up. But only you know that you can make that work. I had 2 tricky experiences. One was when I asked a senior woman about a job in Poland that was, the most senior job I'd done till that point. And she said, "Oh, but you have 3 children, and this job involves a lot of travel around Poland. That's going to be very difficult." And that was the only time in my career that I felt somebody else was suggesting that I couldn't do something. And it happened to be a more senior woman than me. So don't listen to people when they say, but you won't be able to do that. Because you know yourself. It actually just made me more determined. My other lesson was actually the same job. It was a more senior job. It was managing more people and dealing with some subjects I hadn't dealt with before. And I confessed to somebody more junior on day 2 that I didn't know very much about the area that he was responsible for. And I think I never recovered because after that he always thought, she doesn't know anything about this. Actually, you learn very quickly and it's never a problem, so don't admit it. And you'll be fine.
Margot? Yes, please.
I'll just make a related point. I talked about that leadership training that we took, and a defining moment, I think, in that training was training at Harvard, where we were talking about experiences we had all had, where male applicants for a particular position had presented themselves and had maybe 2 out of the needed qualifications out of a list of 10, and sort of said, "I'm perfect for this job." And women who were sitting in the same organization and who had all of the qualifications and more sort of felt that they were not up to putting themselves forward. And so that's really critical, is understanding that you're never going to be a perfect match, but you bring so much to the table that you should consider yourself part of the group that should be competing. And I think that's really critical.
Okay. Thank you. And I think that everyone in the community is amazingly wonderful. And so my career is a little different from the end, because I am only handling the entrepreneurship and the startup, the post-startup companies and the foundations. So since 32 years old, I was always at top of the company or top of the organization. Even the companies and employees, only myself or there are 2 of us or 100 people. So that's a little different situation. However, what I thought is, I think always and thinking about which mountain I'm going up, and so what would be the goal, and for me, for my life, and for the company, for the foundation. So something like that, and we need to see which mountain and we need to go up. So I think that should be shared by everyone, and so that's it. So that's it. Without that goal setting or the which mountain we are going to up, and the people cannot share the feeling, and we are doing the good thing, the right thing to go. And also from the goal, I'm saying to the students sometimes that vision will be the view from the goal that when you go up. However, even before that you are starting going up to the mountain, that is the imagination you can see from the top of the mountain. So that should be the vision. So that once you saw that vision, and that can be shared with everyone, and in your company or organization, you can, even though that the process or load is very tough, and sometimes you need to go back to the starting point, that you go upstairs, or sometimes you have some crowd and you cannot see the top of the mountain. However, you can imagine where you're going. Some sort of things quite important, and to me, and having that imagination and sharing that with my team, that give me the confidence, self-efficacy point, self-confidence things. Yeah. So I think that might be the good thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think Dr. Kuno just mentioned confidence, and also Elizabeth also mentioned the confidence. And I think we all aware that the women tend to be holding back. And we'd appreciate if you could tell us by what moment you gained this confidence, and how did you gain? I mean, what way can we gain our confidence? Because I always have, anxiety. Am I be okay? Should I be, sitting back? But what point and how can we gain the confidence? Who'd like to start? Yeah.
This goes back to, I don't know who made that comment about how the confidence of men. I had an interesting experience. When I first worked in the Clinton White House, I was working in the Office of Presidential Personnel, and I was part of the team that identified candidates for appointments to sub-cabinet positions. And that was one of these, aha moments that you get sometimes, because it was my job to identify qualified candidates, interview them, or they would come in, talk to me because they want to be appointed. Invariably, the men had absolutely no problem shooting for some of the highest positions. And not for any other reason but the fact that they felt qualified. It didn't necessarily show in their paper, but they felt qualified. There was a gentleman who came in to me and said, I want to be secretary of one of the branches of the military. And I looked at him, I went, yeah, and I want to be the Queen of England. I don't know that it's going to happen. And he goes, no, I know I can do it. I'm qualified. I attended a military academy, etc. Fast forward, he got that appointment. It would have never occurred to me to even with all the years' experience that I had, to shoot for that kind of a big jump. But he did it. Why? Because he walked in with, like, he owned the place. Like, this is mine. It's just a matter of process that I have to go to. And I think women kind of have a tendency like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it. Geez, I'm not as qualified. So-and-so next to me is a little more qualified. No, don't think that way. You have so much to offer, and your unique set of skills and the way you deal with challenges is so important. And whatever it is you decide you want to go after, you can do it. I think I've always said you can learn almost anything except science. As Dr. Kuno, I don't know how you do that, but you can learn almost anything. So never step back and think of yourself as unqualified.
For me, as I told, that lack of confidence was my starting point. And for me, the confidence is not for specific job, specific responsibility, but as a human being. So the essence of the confidence for me was that as a human being, can I live by myself? That was the very basic question. And when I felt that I had a confidence. I gained the confidence was the first time I moved to New York. It was a transfer by Merrinch and starting to living in New York. At that time, though I had a job because it was a business transfer, but I was grown up in Japan. I had nobody knows in New York. My English skill was very limited, but when I started to live in New York, I could have my job, I could do my job, and I get the compensation. I could have my housing, the apartment, I could buy food, and I could make friends. And I could build my life as I was in Tokyo, in Japan. So I thought that, okay, I can live in any place in the world. And that was a big change for myself. And at that time, I felt that I have a confidence. I can live any place in the world. And if I have a family, maybe I can build a family together. And if I have children, maybe I can grow them. And that was my essence of the confidence. So once I confirmed that I could do that, there was nothing to afraid, because even though I fail something, I don't lose my life, and I can challenge again. So that was the time I could get the confidence.
I always feel like sometimes people have to authentically pretend that you are confident. And as I said before, I always chose the tougher route or position. And if you take the higher or tougher position, that position makes you, shape the person that you want to be or suitable for that position. So that's the principle that I have been taking, and I really feel like and I'm a big believer that I can do anything if it takes longer time, but eventually I can do it. So that's the message to you all.
I want to tell you about an interesting conversation I had with a coach before I came to take up this job in Japan. I didn't have any problems about the job and my determination to do it and succeed in it. I was very conscious, though, that I was the first woman to have this position, so the number 2 job in the British Embassy in Japan. But I was also very conscious that I look quite young, and I'm actually older than I look. And I always felt that this was a sort of difficult thing, that when people interacted with me, if they thought I was young, they wouldn't take me so seriously. So I guess that, that was the sort of confidence question. And the coach said to me, actually, why are you worried? The job that you have, when people know you have that job and you got that job on merit, they will just treat you accordingly. And it doesn't matter what you look like, or whether you look young or old, or you are young or old. The fact is that the job itself brings you that status and credibility, and people will respond accordingly. So it's just time that you updated your image of yourself. And I thought that was quite an interesting comment, that you shouldn't sort of worry in your own mind about how other people perceive you, because actually they perceive you as that person in that job with that credibility. You just have to change your own idea about where you sit in an organisation as you move up it.
I believe that as we go through life, actually, some of us maybe can have that defining moment, and we know that we've reached some core confidence in ourselves. And actually, the definition of self-confidence is actually trust in yourself. I think for many of us, though, life is a roller coaster of confidence, because you take on one role, one job. you learn how to do it, you develop your confidence, and then you get promoted, and guess what? Now you feel yourself sliding back down the hill. And so I do think that it is normal and it's okay that we have to keep working at our confidence in each stage of our life. And as we grow older, that's another whole story altogether about maintaining your self-confidence. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is to be very aware of self-talk, or another way of putting it is inner voices. I think as women in particular, our heads are full of messages that have been put in there, like, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, women can't do that. Oh, you'll be criticized. Oh, don't say that, it's stupid. We're chock-a-block full of that self-talk. And we need to pull that stuff out, and we need to look at it, and we need to see it for what it is, which is very subjective. There's no evidence to prove that any of those messages are true. Some of it may actually be, I don't quite have that practical skill, so I'll go out and learn it. But the rest of it is totally not accurate and subjective. So we have to get those messages out and look at them and do what I call reframing. We have to reframe them into positive messages that support ourselves. So that's just two things, I think, about confidence. Thank you.
Well, I certainly don't have the confidence that Elizabeth does. One of my favorite books that I guess I need to reread is Taming Your Gremlin. Has anybody heard about that book? That's understanding and recognizing those self-defeating voices. And one of the things is I don't really like to stand up and speak in front of a large group of people. And as you can see, that's still a gremlin for me. But it helps to just recognize it and say, oh, yeah, I don't like to do that very much. I'm not that good at it. But in a way, it doesn't matter if you can sort of recognize it and learn how to overcome it. That's the tricky part. The other thing I think that comes into play with self-confidence is not just that inner gremlin voice, but all those other expectations there are of you as women, as sort of emerging leaders in your field, especially in Japan, where there is an expectation that you will, perhaps get married, perhaps become the world's best mother. The kyoiku mama syndrome in Japan is really frightening to me. I've had Japanese ladies working for me who explained how you had to not just be the perfect mother and have your children dressed perfectly for school, but then you had to make the most beautiful bento box that was better than the other mother's bento and had the perfect characters and everything in it. And we're members of a co-op, which is one of the ways we can sort of cope with work and bringing enough food to feed our children into the house, and they deliver everything, and it's wonderful. But it takes hours to look through the flyer and choose what you need, because there's all these cleaning products to have the most perfectly clean house in Japan, and all the bento, elements that you might choose to assemble the bento. And I think, how hard must it be to be a woman here? My gosh. I mean, in the US, we think it's hard, but if your house is not so dirty that people stick to the floor, we think, okay, that's pretty good, right? In Japan, it has to be spick and span and perfect. So I think just understanding and recognizing those societal expectations and how they're playing into that and how they're affecting your confidence. And a great book to read about that is called The Loudest Duck by Laura Liswood. Does anybody know that book at all? But it's understanding that she talks about the voice of your grandmother. That's, the sort of very traditional role that's being imposed on women. And often the grandmother is the one who sort of is the conduit for that voice of, you're expected to be this kind of person. And that affects you a great deal, what your grandmother expects of you, what your parents expect of you. And sort of, I think, at some level, that's all playing into the confidence piece, because a lot is expected of all of you. So sorting that out and understanding it, I think, is really critical.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And the confidence is the puzzle word, and so that no one knows why you are feeling the confidence and when you are feeling the confidence. So this is, I have that to scientific team I like to solve by the end of my life. The one is why the people can feel the confidence even before starting something. So that should be the risk-taking issue. This should be there some fearness and you might feel. However, some occasion you can feel that you can do that and I can do that type of feeling even before starting that. So that is, I think that maybe that is called self-efficacy. So the self-confidence is more like the feeling you can get after after you complete something. So there's once you feel the self-efficacy even before that you start thinking, you start doing something new, that is a very different type of feeling you might feel. However, I think that could not come without any experience. So that is, I think that even though you are not intentionally doing, you might have done some small challenge or small success or small failure. So that after that, you can get more and more self-efficacy feeling and before doing. And one more advice, if I can do that, because I'm always try to do that, the think big is quite good. So the always thinking big is great thing for everyone. However, at the same time, please think taking a small step-by-step issues. So that if you raise a hurdle so high, you need to do that and achieve that hurdle by using your capacity or talent, 200% of the capacity, it would be very hard. However, if that can be done with your capacity, within your capacity or 10% of the 110% of your capacity, you can do easily. So I think what I try to do is that I think the goal or mountain we need to go, it should be big enough. However, the which way we're going to do is, I think, the small step and step by step. So I hope everyone be relaxing and take it easy to take a step, because that's a small step. So that even though you fail, and don't worry about that's just a small step or something like that. I think that would be, yeah.
Thank you very much. I know everybody has a lot of questions, so I'm going to open up floor for the question. Please identify yourself and brief question. And if you have a particular speaker to answer your question, please do so. Okay, Ben?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, thank you all for your presentations. They were extraordinarily enlightening. I have many questions to answer, but if I can just target just one right here for Ms. Kobayashi. You currently hold a number of corporate board positions, and I was wondering if you could share with us how you earned your first board position, what the reaction of your colleagues was at the time, and what lessons you drew upon from that.
My first board position was appointment to the Merrill Lynch, the president. Again, this was the opportunity was given not as a positive case, because at that time that the company needs to do the major restructuring. So we have to reduce the 2,000 the employee to 1,200. So that was a big time. And I was given because it's a risk as a management was too big. And somehow that the male colleagues afraid to take the position because the downside was too big. And probably I was too optimistic. I was in a position to find out the new, the leader. I was a CAO, so I was helping chairman to find out a new leader to come to Japan, do the restructuring. But there was nobody who wants to take the risk. And there were some people who wanted to take the position, take the risk, being the president. But those people are not, unfortunately, respected as a leader. So somehow that my chairman and my manager my boss in New York said, okay, you do. So I said, what? But at that time I thought that probably I have no idea whether I could do or not. But I thought probably there was no downside, because if I fail to do that, it was the first time that the company in Japan, that kind of size of company, does a big restructuring. So I thought, okay, this is an experience. If I fail, there was no downside for me. I could learn something from that. But people may understand that, okay, this is a stupid woman to take the crazy risk, but that's it. Then I could do something else after that. So I decided, okay, I would do that, but I said I need a support from everybody. Otherwise, I cannot do that. I couldn't do that by myself. So that was the time I became the role of the board.
Okay. Anybody?
Thank you so much for your great and amazing, wonderful presentations. I'm very moved and I almost cry. But I have a question to all of you. Have you ever taken any break or a phase, a break or a temporal leave during your professional career? I know when I heard your personal story, it sounds like all of you are always running, building career continuously. That is of course, yeah, in your personal reality, I hope it's not, but it sounds like you are always moving up. So if you have any personal experience that it's not stop, but just pause your professional career for your personal life or some other issues, could you please share with us? Thank you.
I guess with me, it was just recent. I've been pretty much working nonstop since the age of 17. So when I left the State Department at the end of last year, I knew in my mind what I wanted to do, but I also knew I needed a break, physically, spiritually, emotionally. I needed a break. And it was scary to wake up and not have somewhere to go, not have a meeting to attend, not have much of anything. I think I slept for about 2 months. You don't realize how tired you get because you're always going. But it's been an amazing experience because it's given me the opportunity to really do some serious, quiet thinking about me. Not what is expected of me, not what people say I should say or shouldn't say. I know what my responsibilities are to my family and friends, but this time it's all about me. And it's a daunting process because women, I think, are conditioned to think about everyone else, and all of a sudden it's just you. It's been an enlightening process for me, just doing this, and I'm enjoying it.
I think that that's a good question. I just look back my life, and maybe I didn't take a real break, but it's break that's not necessary for 1 year, 2 years. Just changing something. So even just 1 week, 2 weeks, just forget about what I'm doing, and relax. And coming back was a break, and also changing my job. It's sort of break. So thinking the different way is a break. So break is not necessary to be it is not the number of days, number of years. Yeah, it's more change of the mental, the way of thinking.
I have changed my full-time jobs several times. But I have always have the next step, next place to go. However, one time when I left the law firm that I was working in Seattle, Washington, and I came back to Japan. At that time, I didn't have any place to go. So I echo the ambassador. I was a little bit scared at that time because I had to look for a job. But at the end of the day, I felt like, well, I will have something. and I didn't have something which I really like. So since then, I try not to worry too much.
I wanted actually, when I talked to you, to mention the importance of flexible working, which is something that I've benefited from, and my husband has used as well to combine our two careers. Although I haven't done that much myself. I did have a 3-month break where I took unpaid leave when we were moving countries, and the job I was going to do was not yet available. I also job shared for 2 years as head of the political team in our embassy in The Hague with another woman. So between the two of us, the first secretary in The Hague had 6 children. And we did that by working half a week each. So I think 1 week I worked from Monday till Wednesday lunchtime, and the next week I worked from Wednesday lunchtime to Friday. Although I did spend quite a lot of that time learning Dutch. So I was quite busy when I wasn't working. I think my other tip is, like everybody else really, just take time out. Take all of your holiday. I know it's a very bad Japanese habit not to take the leave that you are contractually given. I don't understand it at all. I always take all of my annual holiday, which at the moment is 30 working days a year. So that's quite a lot, and you can have quite a good break and forget about things and enjoy time with your family or doing completely different activities and so on, and it's really important to do that.
I haven't always worked intensely and been, racing up the ladder. And in fact, before my daughter was born, I was moving, if you like, from one career to another career, and I did have time off. And actually in later years, when I found myself sometimes extremely stressed, because of overwork, my husband always reminds me, he said, "Let me tell you," he said, "the time in your life that I saw you most stressed was when you were at home without a job looking after a baby." So, but one thing I would point out, I think understanding one's own kind of preference and rhythm is very important. And actually, my natural work rhythm is really one which blends very well with working in theatre. In other words, I love to work really intensely, for a certain number of months or weeks, and then collapse and vegetate until you get the next project. And so when I moved into running my own business, I have to say that started to be a shock. And I can say that I'm probably the worst person in the room now for work-life balance. The moment seem to have a work balance, so I struggle with that because I can feel myself actually wanting to step back and just take a complete break, and indeed I need to do that, and yet at the same time the business is driving me, so that's a struggle that I haven't yet found the answer to.
I mentioned having done the sabbatical, one of the things I looked at was best practices across organizations, and certainly very evolved organizations had some kind of system in place for either a sabbatical program like the one I was on, or the chance to sort of alter your work in response to life events. That I think is the next stage of development of organizations, is realizing that not everybody is going to be go all the time, and particularly for women, it's an unfair thing to expect and to ask. And so I think that's really the place that we need to get to, is an understanding that, yes, you're going to be at certain parts in your career where you're fast charging and moving up, and then you need to maybe scale back a little bit. And there's some interesting work being done about how do you model those kinds of systems for working women in particular. But now men more want to take advantage of that. And one of the companies, I'm very interested in the companies that have been sort of repeatedly recognized for being sensitive to this. And there's an excellent list called the Best Companies to Work for Working, or Best Companies for Working Women. And companies like Deloitte is one that has been repeatedly on that list. And one of the reasons is that it's very sensitive to how do you sort of modulate expectations of your employees over the course of their life to be sensitive to the birth of a child or needing to take care of an elderly parent. And I think it's increasingly important, and hope that will one day be more prevalent in Japan.
Can I actually, before I pass on, I'd just like to make one extra comment, which is that as an employer, I model absolutely best practice, and in our workplace we have amazingly flexible work style. And in fact, I now have 3 pregnant women in my company, so I'm tough on myself, but I don't display the same toughness to my employees.
Which is a great point about how you have to model and also allow that good system and flexibility for your employees when you get to the top level, right?
Okay, so this is I don't want to force or to be forced to take a vacation or to take a holidays. And however, I like to have my flexibility, or I can to take a holiday and to take a vacation whenever I need to take, or I would like to take. And so that, and also in my case, I'm handling always not so big organizations, so that, and also the startup type of organization, so that we are working so hard at 24/7 sometimes. However, and because of the small organization and like less than 20, less than 30 people, and we can see each other and just like a family, so we can cover, and whenever there's someone needs a vacation, someone needs to take a left. Eventually that's the coincidence thing. So the last year I have the 3 employees who has the babies. So that's something that, but I think that we can share that the feeling and the needs, and for them to take a leave and for their family issues. So I think that's quite an important thing. But I think as Izumi-san said, and if you can change the career, the job, I think that between having the one job to the another job, you can get some breaks, and 3 months break, 2 months break, or even 1 year break. So I think that is a good thing, and for the Japanese people, think about a little bit more. And career change might give you the more flexibility and to take work-life balance. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we are about time, and we know, I know that everybody has a lot of questions, but we have a happy hour after this. And so I hope that many of panelists can remain and maybe share another experience for the answering questions from students. So I know there are many questions, but we can continue at the happy hour. And I'd like to thank all the panelists for inspiring stories and inspiring answers. And we all enjoy very much. And please join me for applauding panelists. Thank you very much.